Do you remember this book from when you were little? It's called Good Night Moon. And I know I used to read this to my kids a lot of times before bed. They really enjoyed this story. And it's by an author named Margaret Wise Brown. And today we are going to read a story by the same author. Margaret Wise Brown also wrote The Important Book. And I really like this book. It's one of my favorites. I like the way she did it. She wrote it in poems. Remember we talked about Dear Mr. Blueberry was written in letter form, a little bit different the way he wrote it. And in this one, The Important Book's written as poems. And because April is National Poetry Month, I decided that I would share this book written in poems, and then we would try our hand at writing a poem just like Margaret Wise Brown did. So this is called The Important Book. Here is a picture of spoons. Now, it's kind of odd to think that spoons are important, but you know what Margaret Wise Brown does? She says, I'm going to tell you why this spoon is so important. And all of her poems are written in the same way, so they have the same format. So listen to what it says. The important thing about a spoon is that you eat with it. It's like a little shovel. You hold it in your hand, you can put it in your mouth. It isn't flat, it's hollow, and it spoons things up. But the important thing about a spoon is that you eat with it. See how she did that? She ended and began her poem with the same line, but in between, she put the reasons why the spoon is important. And it is, by the way. These are called daisies. She's going to tell us the important thing about daisies. The important thing about a daisy is that it is white. It is yellow in the middle. It has long white petals and bees sit on it. It has a ticklish smell. It grows in green fields, and there are always lots of daisies. But the important thing about a daisy is that it is white. She did the same thing with that one, did you notice? She started the beginning with the important thing about a daisy, and she ended the poem with the exact same line. I think that's pretty neat, the way she chose that. There's the picture. And if you can tell, it's raining in the picture. So she tells us the important thing about rain. The important thing about rain is that it is wet. It falls out of the sky, and it sounds like rain, and it makes things shiny, and it does not taste like anything. And it's the color of air. But the important thing about rain is that it's wet. Here's a picture of the grass. The important thing about grass is that it is green. It grows and is tender with a sweet grassy smell. But the important thing about grass is that it is green. See how she did that with the format? This one's all about snow. So I'm going to read you the important thing about snow. The important thing about snow is that it's white. It is cold and light. It falls softly out of the sky. It is bright and the shape of tiny stars and crystals. It is always cold, and it melts. But the important thing about snow is that it's white. See the format she's using? I think it's pretty neat. Here is an apple. We're going to learn the important thing about an apple. And I thought, because she used so many of the ones that she started with back here were about the color, I thought she might say the important thing about an apple is it's red, but she doesn't. The important thing about an apple is it's round. It's red, you bite it, and it's white inside, and the juice splashes in your face, and it tastes like apple and it falls off a tree, but the important thing about an apple is that it's round. The important thing about the wind is that it blows. You can't see it, but you can feel it on your cheek and see it bend trees and blow hats away and sailboats. But the important thing about the wind is that it blows. The important thing about the sky is that it's always there. It is true that it's blue and high and full of clouds and made of air, but the important thing about the sky is that it's there. The important thing about a shoe is that you put your foot in it. You walk in it and you take it off at night, and it's warm when you take it off. But the important thing about a shoe is that you put your foot in it. The important thing about you is that you are you. It is true that you were a baby and you grew and now you are a child and you will grow into a man or into a woman. But the important thing about you is that you are you. I love that. It's telling us that there are lots of important things in the world, but the fact that you are you is one of the most important. Everybody's unique. Now remember, I told you this format, she used the same one on each page. She took the most important thing about, and then at the end she did the same thing. We're going to try our hand at writing an important poem as soon as I get back. Before we do that, grab a piece of paper and a pencil, or something to write with, I don't mind. And you can try to write one with me. Think about what you think is important in the world, and that can be your topic. All right, I'll join you back here in a little bit. Bye. So we're going to take what we learned from the Important Thing book, and we're going to create our own Important Thing poem. And I'm actually going to use the information I collected from our tree book yesterday to write this poem, because I think it's a great idea, since we said trees are so important, to use my Important Thing poem about trees. So I'm going to pull up this one, which is one of the examples that's in Margaret Wise Brown's book. And it's the very first page, the thing about a spoon that's important. And we're just going to kind of look at this again to see how she uses her poem and what format it is. So here's the very first thing she does. She writes, the important thing about a spoon is that you eat with it. So her very first sentence is what makes that particular thing that she's talking about so important. And then she gives us 1 detail, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 details about some other things about a spoon. And then she restates, but the most important thing is that you eat with it. So she takes this sentence here and she takes it down here and repeats it. But in between, she writes a few details about some other things that the spoon can do, or some other descriptions about the spoon. So we're going to do that same thing. And I'm going to show you by taking my sheet from yesterday, where I said that the main idea of our story was that trees are important. And then I also said some details that tell us or give us evidence that trees are important. So I'm going to use that to write my important poem. So I'm going to write that at the top here. So here's my paper. Like I said, you can use whatever medium you want. You can use paper, you can use a pencil, you can use crayons, however you want to do this. And you can play this back again to help you later on if you want to do a different one after we're done with this one. So what does she say first? She says, the important thing about, and then this is what I'm going to write. I'm going to write a tree. Do you have to write about a tree? No, you can write about anything that you want to write about. The important thing about a tree is, and you know what I'm going to look at? I'm going to look at my details and try to decide which one I think I want to include as the most important thing. And I think I'm going to write the important thing about a tree is that it gives us oxygen. I love that part. Okay, so remember, I'm going to take that same sentence and I'm going to repeat it at the end. But in between, I'm going to write some of the other things that we found out about trees. So I'm going to start it with the important thing about a tree is that it gives us oxygen. And I'm just going to skip down here. I'm going to say wood comes from trees. Trees give animals a place to live. I'm going to say that food comes from trees. We learned about that yesterday. I'm going to put down, trees hold soil in place, comma, so, whoops, let me go back and do that. So we can have, I'm going to put drinking water because we learned that. And then my last sentence is, but the most, does she say most? Let's go back and look at that. How does she? Nope, she just says, but, thank you. But the important thing about a tree is that it gives us oxygen. So let's look at my poem there. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger now that I'm done. I didn't know how big I needed it. There we go. I like this. It looks like a poem. So let's read it through again, see if it sounds kind of like the ones that were in the book. The important thing about a tree is that it gives us oxygen. Wood comes from trees. Trees give animals a place to live. Food comes from trees. Trees hold soil in place so we can have drinking water. But the important thing about a tree is that it gives us oxygen. Does that sound like our book? I think it sounds pretty close. I also noticed I did something that I didn't mean to do in my poem. Do you see how I said the important thing is the first sentence, and then look, I put wood comes from trees, and then I said trees give animals a place to live. And then I kind of repeated this one, food comes from trees. Trees hold soil in place so we can have drinking water. I didn't notice I did that, but I kind of like the way that it looks and the way that it sounds. It's very rhythmic. But the important thing about a tree is that it gives us oxygen. Something that I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and keep this poem because tomorrow we're going to have a treescape art lesson, and my daughter's going to help me with that. So I think I actually might use this poem as part of my treescape. Hopefully you'll join me then. But until tomorrow, have a great night and practice writing important thing poems. Goodbye.